Good evening. Welcome to this edition of the Evening Review. My name is Jemima Beekers. I'm your host this evening. We have in studio Mr. August Maletzky. He is a human rights activist, and we are talking about the way properties are sold in Namibia and bought. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Maletzky.
Oh, yes. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be sharing this platform with you. I'm August Maletzky, the Director of African Labor and Human Rights Center. And yeah, I'm at your service.
Mr. Maletzky, could you share your experiences with property transactions in Namibia, especially concerning the sale of houses?
Yeah, it is a tragic song, the lyrics of which I know by heart. You see, it is natural that every person who engages in the purchase of a house would one or the other time face difficult economic circumstances which lead to his or her default on her mortgage bond obligations. But that should not mean the loss of his house. There are various ways in which this can be resolved. But let's suppose that the person cannot afford the mortgage bond anymore and the house is being sold. There is no remedy. The person cannot save his house by repaying the mortgage bond. A default judgment is taken and the court declares the property immovable property executable. In other words, it must be sold in execution of the judgment. What then happens is that whilst the courts engage in corrupt activities compromising our entire justice delivery system, in fact, when immovable property is to be sold, it must be sold at a public auction. But what happens is buyers of these immovable properties are predetermined way ahead of the judicial auction. Hennis would meet Mr. A, B, C, or Andre Visser would meet with Mr. X, B, Y, and they will determine that they are going to sell a property which market value is 1.9 million Namibian dollars for $250,000, and that would be the end of the auctioning process, of the judicial auction. And what then happens is these guys call a public auction. They decide who will partake and participate in this public auction. They also decide who will not participate in them at their personal whim. And then after all, it appears as if a judicial auction has taken place.
Mr. August, can you share with us some of the experiences, real experiences of this happening?
Yes, in fact, it happened at many occasions. It happened with the house of Mr. Brinkman, Bank Windhoek Brinkman, case number HCMBCIB ACTCON 2021/04875. It happened with the house of Mr. Schultz versus Netbank, where properties that were valued at 3 million Namibian dollars were sold for 750 Namibian dollars, 750,000 Namibian dollars. And this is a process that has been ongoing. In fact, there's an endless list of what has been happening. Alex.
These two examples that you've listed, you've earlier mentioned that they are premeditated clients. Could you share a bit on that?
Yes. The fact is, the Deputy Sheriff Andre Visser or Mr. Hennis would agree with one or two, three of his friends, arrive at a place where a judicial auction is supposed to take place, whilst they have already concluded the deal in the privacy of their homes or their bars where they have fun, that this property would be sold for X amount of money, and that subsequent thereto the property would be sold for its market value, and then they would share in the profits generated from this sale. And this is a practice that has been going on for many years. It is a practice that has been going on for many years. And this is what we have been fighting. The consequences of this practice is that innocent people are left homeless. And not only that, they are still left with a humongous debt that remains outstanding as a result of the house having been sold way under its market value at this giveaway auction that is referred to as a judicial auction. You see, the practice that I described undermines the principles of fairness, transparency, and justice within the financial system and the legal systems, exploiting vulnerable individuals and contributing to systematic inequality. Here are several key points that highlight why this conduct is not only immoral, but also detrimental to society. Violation of the principle of fairness for starters. Judicial auctions are supposed to serve as a mechanism for fairly resolving mortgage defaults, ensuring that both the lender and the borrower are treated equitably. However, when properties are auctioned below their market value, especially with pre-arranged deals between the deputy sheriff, Andre Visser, and Hennis, they are typically in charge of these type of transactions, and potential buyers, it represents a blatant violation of the debtor's right to a fair and just process. The auction process becomes a mere formality that serves the interests of a few corrupt individuals rather than providing a fair opportunity for all parties involved. Unjust enrichment of corrupt individuals. This behavior that I've just described, where the deputy sheriff in collusion with buyers facilitates a sale at an unfairly low price, amounts to corruption and self-enrichment at the expense of an already vulnerable debtor. The debtor who is likely facing financial difficulties, that's why he doesn't pay his mortgage bonds, is deprived of not only of their home, but also subjected to a process that does not reflect the true value of their property. This corrupt system essentially funnels wealth from one debtor to the network of corrupt individuals and perpetuate economic inequality. This is what we are complaining about all along. In
Mr.
fact,
Maletzky, just to
double
come in there,
injustice.
do you think the Namibian, because you've just now highlighted the abuses of human rights abuses and the pushing for inequality, do you think the Namibian laws are sufficient to protect Namibians against what you allege is happening?
Well, I think Namibian laws are sufficient to a certain extent. It is just the implementation of these laws where we are seriously lacking. We have brothers and cousins and friends implementing and facilitating the implementation of these laws. So when it comes to questioning the integrity of a judicial sale in auction, it's virtually impossible to rise up against or to challenge the integrity of sorry for that.
Yes.
High Court of Office of the High Court of Namibia, and it's just not accepted. So, whilst there are mechanisms in place, these mechanisms themselves contribute to the undermining of the trust of the judicial system. The role of the deputy sheriff and other judicial officers is to uphold justice and the rule of law. When these officers engage in corrupt practices such as pre-arranging the sale of houses at artificially low prices, they erode public trust in the entire justice delivery system. Citizens must have confidence that their cases will be handled impartially and without bias. And fortunately, that is not what is happening in Namibia. When corruption takes public root,
yes,
we become skeptical of the fairness of the judicial proceedings, leading to the broader societal instability. Failure to respect the rights of vulnerable populations, the individuals most affected by this corrupt system are those who are already economically disadvantaged, economically vulnerable. Often, these most vulnerable communities who are mostly at risk of losing their homes in the first place, right?
yes,
They are enabling this predatory system because they do not have the financial means to resist it. They don't have the financial ability to rise up against it. They are victims who don't understand a court process. Some of them have never been to court. Some of them don't know what the distinction between a judge, a magistrate, and a police officer is. They're in a state of shock. They just silently stand by and witness lose their properties. And our legal minds, the deputy sheriffs that we have in this country, the messengers of court that we have in this country, the legal practitioners who share in the profits of these economically vulnerable people that we have in this country, they do nothing about it. To them, they literally urinate on the Constitution of the Republic of Namibia and despise the economic rights of our people. To them, Article 16 of the Constitution is meaningless. Legal and ethical implications of their conduct. From a legal standing point alone, this practice is a breach of contract principles, as it is fundamentally a distortion of the true value of the property and the debt owned. How could you sell a property that is valued at 3 million Namibian dollars for $3,000? I mean, where do you get that from? The process of foreclosure should be conducted in a manner that reflects the true value of the asset, ensuring that both parties, the borrower and the lender, are treated justly and
Mr. Maletzky, you've also been very vocal about banks unfairly repossessing and auctioning off homes at a fraction of this. Why do you believe the financial institutions are so quick to sell these houses?
Well, I'm telling you that one of the reasons why they are so quick is and with the greatest of respect, you know, I always suspected that the directors and the owners of these banks were directly involved in it. But I have come to realize that perhaps they are not. Perhaps middle management and upper management are solely responsible for the corruption that is perpetuated within these financial institutions. But be that as it may, you know, the news media reports that have gone out should have alerted all of them to the fact that banks in Namibia stand accused of abusing the economic vulnerability of people whom they were supposed to have assisted and people from whom they have generated millions of money. It is unthinkable that, you know, we perpetuate a cycle of poverty and inequality by taking an asset that is worth 10 million rand and selling it at a public auction for $750,000, and in return expecting the debtor to still pay the balance that remains outstanding. That is unconstitutional. It is a violation of your Article 16 rights to ownership. It's not only bringing about distrust in the financial institutions, but in our entire justice delivery system. You see, say in conclusion is these decisions are manipulated for personal gain. It destroys the trust in our legal system and in our financial systems. And it undermines individual rights and perpetuates cycles of poverty and inequality. The solution lies in stricter oversight, transparency and accountability in both the banking and judicial systems to ensure that the process of foreclosure is conducted ethically and in the best interest of all the parties involved. Only then can we hope and trust in our system.
Mr. Maletzky, just to clarify, we are going on a short break. We are not concluding. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, if you've just joined us, we have in studio Mr. August Maletzky. He is an activist. He is also the director of the African Center for Human Rights. Now, Mr. Maletzky, before we went on a break, you were talking about the unfair foreclosures by the banks. Could you tell us the demography of these clients that are affected, from which people are mostly affected?
Well, generally, people lose their houses and immovable properties in urban areas. Windhoek, Okahanya, in other words, yeah, the urbanized areas of Namibia. But the loss of immovable property is not related to losing of homes only. It also relates to the loss of farms. People also buy farms and are also losing farms as a result of defaulting on their mortgage bond obligations. So the macroeconomic impact of, of foreclosures is not limited to the loss of homes only. It extends to beyond the loss of homes. It extends to the loss of agricultural land. And there is no rescue inside people.
What have you
You see,
done to
on a
raise these
macroeconomic,
issues? What have you done to raise these issues and to point out what the banks are doing
well,
as
we
you believe?
stated, we stated on more than one occasion. I think, as I said to you, this is a song that we can sing. Whatever time you wake us up at night, we can sing it, that the long-term consequences for the economy has been highlighted to central government, to the financial institutions, to the Development Bank of Namibia, to the Namibian Financial Institution Supervisory Authority in Namibia. It has been highlighted to the Minister of Finance, and it has been highlighted to the government, the cabinet, from the days of Dr. Sem Nujoma, Mr. Bohamba, Mr. The late President Hage Geingob, etc. You see, the long-term consequences, which really are something to be taken serious note of, is that for the economy of Namibia, and this you must take serious note of, on a macroeconomic level, the continued abuse of the foreclosure system contributes to financial instability. When individuals are driven deeper into debt by corrupt auction practices, it reduces their purchasing power, hampers their ability to contribute meaningfully to the economy, and increases the likelihood of long-term economic decline. Now, this is what people are missing. Economic decline is not just about not having mines and what, but foreclosures and decreasing economic participants who freely want to participate in the economy of this country by foreclosing on their immovable properties, their agricultural land, has a direct impact on the macroeconomy of this country. So, for a person to contribute meaningfully to the economy and to increase the likelihood of long-term economic growth, widespread economic instability, which is caused by these foreclosures, must be reduced, because it is only harmful not only to the individuals, but to the broader market, to the entire Namibia within which we live. We have repeatedly stated to the government of the Republic of Namibia and all stakeholders that the risk of this economy collapsing is seriously, to a large degree, attributable to the banks, the deputy sheriff, and the corrupt justice delivery system.
Now, Mr. Maletzky, while you have fought against banks, you have also faced allegations of fraud and forgery related to property sales in Namibia. How do you respond to these allegations?
Well, I would like to laugh about it, but when it comes to the law in Namibia, let the law take its course. Until this very moment, I do not have a criminal record. I have not had a criminal record. I will not have a criminal record. So that doesn't mean that I'm flawless, that I'm a perfect human being. Yes. But I'm not a criminal. I do not live off the proceeds of crimes. That's the distinction. I do not say that I am a perfect human being. I have my flaws. But as far as participating in the economy of Namibia is concerned, I am flawless.
Mr.
I'm an
Maletzky,
active participant in the economy of the country.
in 2017, a court cancelled the sale of a house in Windhoek West, which you allegedly sold
Yes.
for 2.5 million. The court also ordered that the property be re-registered to its original owner. So could you provide your perspective on this, given your stance on protecting homeowners?
Well, the matter is actually a very difficult one for me to comment on because the court cases are still ongoing. Even the reversal of the property, the instruction that the High Court gave that the property should be reversed in the owner of in the name of the previous owner, even that matter has been appealed against. So it's not final. It is sub judice. So to assume that yes, the High Court announced itself and said that the owner, the property should be reversed into the name of the previous owner, even that decision is being challenged in the Supreme Court. So it's not final. And it is a very difficult thing to do, to use public fora to generate support for a case or against a case. I respect our justice delivery system, and I answer to all the questions and to all the issues that are raised against me in a competent court of law, and I shall continue doing so. But unfortunately, as for now, to, answer to issues that are before an honorable judge that are still to be decided and to play or to give my side of the story in public would be contrary to the aspirations of the principle that says this matter is before a court of law and you are not going to say anything about it. I hope that answers your question.
That certainly does. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Maletzky. Now, thank you for joining us. Until next time.